Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Today we are having our lecture number 9, and the unit is Understand the Impact of Market Environment on Organizations. And we are going to study its second part, second subunit, that is Analyze the Possible Planned Interventions in the Marketplace and their Impact on Organizations. In previous lecture, we studied about the initiatives that a government take in free market, whether it is national or international. Uh, all the initiatives that government will take in order to regulate the markets, and that included taxes, subsidies, setting maximum and minimum prices, tools of market regulation, state ownership, and funding. In today's lecture, you people will be able to understand the impact of planned interventions by the government, correcting the market failures, redistribution of income and wealth, managing monopolistic situations, improvement of market performance, mobility, and social inclusion. Okay, so what is the difference between the intervention by government and the initial initiatives that any government will take in order to regulate the market? So, initiatives include all those steps that are that will be introduced in the market for the very first time. For example, taxes, subsidies, price induction, or setting up different prices, and many other things. While the interventions by the government include correction of the things or correction of the drawbacks that are already present in any market. Okay, so here is the difference between government initiatives and interventions by the government. So today we are going to study the interventions by the government, how the government is correcting the drawbacks that are already present in any market. It include market failure, income and wealth, monopolistic companies or monopolistic situations, the market performance, and mobility and social inclusion. So let us have a look how all these things can be corrected or adjusted by the government. First is correcting market failures. A market failure is when there is an inefficient distribution of goods and services that leads to a lack of equilibrium in a free market. Okay, so when the market will fail or when the market failure will happen, market failure will happen whenever there is an inefficient distribution of goods and services among all the shareholders, among all the businesses that are already present in any market. So it will lead to market failure. It is impossible to identify a solution for market failure without clearly identifying what a market failure is and why it persists. So, of course, there cannot be a proper diagnosis for any disease until and unless we know the cause of the disease, the nature of the disease, and the progress of the disease. So, in the same case, when we are unaware about the cause of market failure and we are unable to find the root cause of market failure, we will not reach to its correction. The common interpretation of market failure is the failure of a market to live up to the standards of perfect competition that leads to an efficient distribution of goods and services. Okay, so the most common practice or the most common belief is that market failure will always occur whenever a market fails to offer a competition between different businesses, or there will be an inefficient distribution of goods and services between all the businesses that are present in any market, or all the companies or firms that are present in any market. It means that goods and services are not equally distributed, and if they are distributed, they are not of the optimum quality, which leads to market failure. This idea is applied in general equilibrium economics when the law of supply and demand fail to reach a state of equilibrium in a free market due to some outside force. Okay, so this idea of market failure, it is applied in general equilibrium economics. Okay, what is equilibrium? Equilibrium is the state when sale and purchase, both of these states or both of these extremities, they are equal to each other. Okay, so this idea of market failure is applied on equilibrium state of any economics when law of supply and demand fail to reach the state of equilibrium. We have studied what is law of supply and demand in our lecture number 6. Okay, so when that law of supply and demand fail to reach in any market, then market failure will occur. Market failure can be identified in many, if not all, the markets. So it can be identified very easily in any market. Okay, now let us see what are the causes of a market failure. When one participant has control of one or more areas of the market and therefore is able to control the price of a good or service rather than letting changes in supply and demand to do so. Okay, first reason was there was inefficient distribution of goods and services to all the businesses that are present in market. It is known as market failure. So what causes this inefficient distribution of goods and services? For example, if one of the participant or one of the business, here the participant means business, firm, company. So if one of the participant has control of one or more areas of the market, then therefore is able to control the price of a good or service rather than letting changes in supply and demand. It means that if a business occupies almost two-third, or you can say two-fourth of any market. Okay, so two-fourth of the market for sale purchase of a specific product is occupied by a specific business, then it means it is that business is sharing almost 50%, 50% in the sale of that product. So when a business is sharing or introducing or plays an important role in 50% of the sale of that product, it means that business can easily handle the sale purchase of that good independently. That business will decide the price of the good. That business will be responsible for the efficient sale and purchase of the good. And it does not matter why that whether the rest of the 50% of the market is able to interfere in the price induction or not. Okay, so when one participant has control of one or more areas, when more areas occupied by any specific participant, then that participant or that business will be able to control the price of the goods offered by their business. This is often seen in monopolies. Exactly, we will study in detail what is monopoly and what happens when a monopoly occurs in any market. This is often seen in monopolies where a company that has a monopoly sets the price of a product or service regardless of the supply of and demand of that product. So whenever a business or a participant is having control over the main percent of area occupied by the market, and that business is also able to control the price of the good or any service, then of course it the price set by that business will not be hindered by the supply and demand of that product. A lack of the perfect information can also lead to market failure. This is the second reason of market failure. When buyers and sellers don't have all the correct information, they may buy or sell a product at higher or lower price than what would be reflective of its true benefit or cost. Okay, here it is stated that in case all the businesses that are present in market and they are selling the product, if they do not have sufficient information regarding the products that are being sold by their business, then either they can say they will sell the product at higher level or they will sell the product at the lower level, and this will also result in market failure. because the good is not being sold at proper price. Okay, so of course, maybe it will result in instead of giving profit, the sale of that product may result in loss, financial loss. So it will also result in market failure. Public goods also lead to market failure as the cost of a public good does not increase with increased users of that public good. Okay, so public goods also lead to market failure. Why? Because the cost of public good does not increase with increased users of that public good. The prices of public goods are fixed by the government. And whether or not, if the consumers increase in number, consumer of that product increase in number or decrease in number, it means that whether the product is higher in demand in the market or not, it will not affect the price of that good. It will remain fixed as determined by the government. If certain users continue to use a public good but do not pay for it, for example, through taxes, then it can lead to market failures. So the public goods that are usually offered by the government or government fixes some taxes upon the usage of such public goods. And if citizens will not pay the taxes for the usage of such goods or services, then of course it will lead to market failure. So there are mainly three causes of a market failure. Number one is when a business has control over maximum area of the market, then that business will be able to control the price of the market and it will result in market failure. Second reason is if the business that is present in the market and selling a specific product do not have sufficient information about that product and is selling the product on a very higher or very lower level than price, sorry, then it will also result in market failure. Third is if the public goods are being used by the citizens and citizens are unable to pay the tax, then it would also result in market failure. How to correct a market failure? Imperfect market outcomes are corrected through a reallocation of resources or a change in the incentive structure. Okay, so how will the government correct the market failure system in any persisting market? They will be corrected by reallocation of the source resources or the change in incentive structure. Economists have different opinions about the nature of market failures and what, if any, measures need to be taken to prevent or correct them. So, whenever there will be a reallocation of the resources of the product, okay, basically, we are talking about producers over here, or there will be a change in incentive structure, then it will lead to correction of the market failure. Using the broad, because in both ways, if reallocation of the resources will happen or if the changes in the incentive structure will happen, both of these things will result in the proper usage of the public goods as well as the first cause, that was if a business is occupying more area of any market. Okay, so this thing will correct both of these causes and will result in a proper market, a healthy market. Using the broad perfect competition definition, market failures are corrected by allowing competing entrepreneurs and consumers to push the market further towards equilibrium over time. Markets tend toward equilibrium constantly, never quit reaching it. This is because of limitations in human knowledge and changing real world circumstances. Okay, so there is also another correction for the first cause, that is where a business is occupying more area in the market. So, in this, you can say the diagnosis of the cause, the government will introduce new and perfect competitors in the market. And by this way, the market will move towards the equilibrium. There will be equal supply and demand in the market, as a result of which market failure will be corrected and there will be healthy market. But the markets tend to reach the equilibrium constantly, and never it will happen that the market will finally reach the equilibrium. Why? Because human knowledge keep on exploring more and more things in the economics, and will keep on as a result of which the real world circumstances will keep on changing. So whenever a thing is going smoothly, whenever a market is going smoothly, then it is more than sufficient for proper working of any market. So this was the ways to correct the market failure. Some economists and policy analysts propose a litany. What is litany? Repetition, repetitive series of possible interventions and regulations to compensate for perceived market failures. Tariffs, subsidies, redistributive or punitive taxation, disclosure mandates, trade restrictions, price floors and ceilings, and many other market distortions. They have been justified on the basis of correcting inefficient outcomes. So whenever a government is about to correct the inefficient outcomes or inefficient distribution, eventually the government is playing its role in correcting any market failure that is present already. So some economists and policy analysts, they also propose that there should be a repetitive possible interventions and regulations in order to keep on make changes in the market and ensure the proper and smooth functioning of the market. So this was all about correcting the market failure. I have completed the first point, the first intervention by the government, and now I'm going to start the second point, that is redistribution of income and wealth. After years of quasi neglect, economic inequality has taken center stage in the policy debate worldwide. Okay, so what is redistribution of economy and wealth? What is meant by redistribution of economy and wealth? In advanced economies, the apparent impact of globalization and technological change and the cost of counteracting these forces is raising concern. In developing economies where inequality is higher, the issue is whether it poses a major obstacle to raising growth and reducing the poverty. In both cases, the redistribution of income might achieve not only greater equality but also faster growth and for developing economies, faster poverty reduction. Okay, redistribution of income and wealth is very important when we talk about the economic inequality. Whenever there is economic inequality in any country, it is very important to reconsider the redistribution of income and the wealth. Why? Because due to the ongoing globalization and the technological changes, the developing economies are facing the situations where inequality is higher, and as a result of which the poverty is also increasing day by day. Okay, why? Because this inequality thing is providing the major obstacle in growing and in growing the businesses and in reducing the poverty. So due to this inequality in income and wealth, the even the developed economies are also facing the circumstances, the bad circumstances. So in either cases, whether the economy is developing, whether the economies are countries that have developed economies, it is very important to reduce the inequality, to introduce the redistribution of income and wealth, so that there will be proper growth of the businesses and there will be a proper reduction of poverty. Because for the countries that are very developed countries, it is very important for them to reduce the poverty speedily, because if they will not do so, the government will not take steps to reduce the poverty. As a result, they will lower their status from developed country or developed economy to the developing economy, and finally underdeveloped economy. So it is very important to consider this point, to consider the redistribution of income and wealth. In countries where growth is satisfactory but benefits the poor much less than the non poor, there obviously is a strong case of shifting the resources from those at the top of the income scale to those at the bottom scale. Okay, so the countries where there is satisfactory growth, or you can say that those countries that are basically developing countries, they are going through the process of development, and they benefits the redistribution of income and wealth basically benefits the poor people much as compared to the elite class. Then in that case, resources are actually being shifted from the top level to the bottom level, from the people that are present in that are who are called elite class people. The resources have been shifted from them to the people who are at medium, or you can say lower medium class, sorry, middle class or lower middle class, giving poor children. And that is very a positive point or plus point of the developing countries if they take such steps. So in this case or in this way, they are also ensuring that there is smooth distribution of wealth among all the financial level of the people. Giving poor children access to better education and paying for it by taxing the affluent is one way to reduce inequality while also fostering future growth and poverty reduction. Redistributive policies could also help narrow the gap between the rich and poor in countries with high inequality, where the social and political tensions or the rise of populist regimes might prove bad for growth in the long run. Okay, so in what are the other ways that redistribution of income and wealth can be assured? The one way is to shift the resources from the elite class towards the middle class or lower middle class. How? By giving the poor children better education and by paying their taxes, because the resources have been shifted from the elite class. So actually the taxes that are being paid by the government are actually basically being paid by that elite class. They are paying the taxes for the poor class or the middle class families. So in this way, the poverty reduction can be, poverty reduction will happen, and as a result of which the economy of the country will become stronger and stronger with each passing day. Redistributive policies could also help narrow the gap between the rich and poor, because when the resources will be shifted from the rich to the poor in any country, so the financial gap between the rich and poor will eventually decrease, where social and political tensions or the rise of populist regimes might prove bad for the growth in long run. So this will prove to be a very efficient step in order to narrow the gap between the rich and poor financial status, and also in order to reduce the poverty in any country. But the social pressures, the political pressures, and some other regimes that may be beneficial for the elite class, for the rich ones, they may also cause an obstacle or hurdle in reducing the poverty in any country. Knowing that a more equal distribution of resources may be good for a development is one thing. Having the right instruments to implement it is another. Okay, so whenever the country is going through a phase of from developing to the developed country, this is very important to keep in mind by any government, that distribution of resources in order to reduce the poverty is one thing, but its implementation is very important. The assuring of this step is very important for poverty reduction. These instruments means basically the steps from progressive taxation, cash transfers, and investment in human capital to regulation and inclusive growth strategies do exist, but they are vastly underused in the developing economies. Now, how it will be implemented? This thing will be implemented. How it will be assured that there is equal distribution of resources among all the people through different steps. And the steps are taxation and subsidies, the cash transfers, the investment, the investment in human capital to regulation and inclusive growth strategies. All these steps, they will assure that there is proper implementation of the steps to poverty reduction. or the steps to in order to ensure the equal distribution of resources among all the people, but they are vastly underused in developing economies. The countries that are having the developing economies, or they are developing countries, in such countries it is not basically assured, and such steps are not exactly implemented. There is therefore a strong case for the expansion of redistribution in the developing economies when the growth is satisfactory but poverty reduction is slow. Okay, so in this case, in such cases when there is no proper surety of implementation of all these steps, either or not, the countries are fighting with the proper economy, with the good economies or good economic regulations, or the steps towards the good economies, whether or not the country is taking all such steps. But if the country is not playing its part in the poverty reduction, then it will not change the economic status of the country. Whether your businesses are working properly, your firms are working properly, your industries are working very well, but if the country is not working on poverty reduction, then it will not change the economic status of the country. The developing country will remain the developing country. It will not become the developed country because the percentage of the poverty remain is the same. The government has not taken any step to reduce the poverty. So there will be imbalance between the rich and the poor. The gap will be increased. So it will not affect the economic status of the country. There are political obstacles to doing so. However, as well as the challenges related to the country's administrative capacity. Political opposition may well remain, but modern information technology is likely to improve the administrative capacity. Okay, so one of the big hurdle or obstacle in poverty reduction is the political pressure. Okay, so the political pressure plays a very important role in this case, because most of the time when a country is fighting with its economic status, the political pressure will tend the government to distribute the resources or distribute the goods and services inefficiently or inequally. Effect of economic income redistribution will lower the poverty by reducing inequality, the same thing that I have told you earlier, if done properly. Okay, so the condition is, if done properly, then economic redistribution will lower the poverty, but it may not accelerate the growth in any major way, except perhaps by reducing the social tensions arising from inequality and allowing the poor people to devote more resources to human and physical asset accumulation. Okay, so if the income redistribution is done properly, then it will help in reducing the poverty in any country. But by the economic redistribution, it is not surety that economic growth will be accelerated. Okay, because it is not because it is not confirmed that the government will distribute the resources efficiently among the poor and the rich. Okay, so if it is done properly, then it will reduce the poverty in any country. Okay, so the third intervention by the government is managing monopolistic redistribution. Managing monopolistic situation. Monopoly. So, what is monopoly? Monopoly is a market structure where a single seller or producer assumes a dominant position in any industry or a sector. Okay, so as we discussed this point in market failure, that when a business is occupying major area in any market, then the market failure will occur. So same is the case with monopoly. Monopoly is basically a company, a firm, or any business. It is basically a market structure, okay, where a single business or single firm is occupying a dominant position in any industry or any sector. Whether the dominant position can be in terms of the area occupied by that business, or the dominant position can be in terms of the maximum sale and purchase that will be done by that business, as compared to the other businesses that are present in that sector. Monopolies are discouraged in free markets economies as they stifle the competition and limit the substitutes for consumers. So basically, for a proper successful market, monopolies are discouraged. Why they are discouraged? Because the profit is limited to single business. Okay, there will be no competition and there will be no substitute for the goods or the services that are being offered by the business, because that business, the single company that is occupying the major dominant position in the industry, that will be getting the main profit, that will be controlling the sale purchase of the product, and that business will not let other businesses to introduce any substitute or alternative of the goods or the services that are being offered by the business, that specific business. Okay, in the United States, the antitrust legislation is in place to restrict the monopolies, ensuring that one business cannot control a market and use that control to exploit its consumers. Okay, so in US, as I have told you earlier, that monopolies are basically, they should be discouraged in any market. In US antitrust legislation, a firm was taken into account in order to restrict the monopolies, ensuring that one business will not control the whole market. A monopoly is a business that is characterized by a lack of competition within a market and unavailable substitutes for its product. Monopolies can dictate price changes and create barriers for the competitors to enter the marketplace. I have told you people the same thing, that monopolies basically, a monopoly, as I have told you people earlier, that what is monopoly? Monopoly is any business that is occupying major position in any market and that is basically controlling the sale and purchase of any good or service. So monopolies can dictate price changes and create the barriers for competitors to enter the market. And because all whenever in any market a business is basically handling the sale and purchase of a specific product, it will become difficult for other competitors, newbies, to enter into that market. Because already a business is occupying a major position for a specific product, how the other competitors can enter and offer the same product and sell the same product. So it will become very difficult for them to gain the profit. Companies become monopolies by controlling the entire supply chain from production to sales through vertical integration or buying competing companies in the market through horizontal integration and becoming the sole producer. Okay, so how the company monopolies are basically the companies. How they will become monopoly? Because they are controlling the supply chain, they are controlling the production of the product. Okay, so they are also, if it is not visible then do tell me. So I was telling you people that companies become monopolies by controlling the whole supply and demand chain of the product, specific product, and it is indirectly controlling, instead I must say it is directly controlling the production of that product, the sale of the product, the supply and demand of the product. So whenever a business is all in all for a specific product, then it will become difficult for other competitors or other businesses to enter the market and play important role in the sale and purchase of the same product. Okay, but there are different type of monopolies. So let us have a look. How many types of monopolies are there? There are basically three types: the pure monopoly, the natural monopoly, public monopolies. Okay, so what is the pure monopoly? A pure monopoly is a single seller in a market or sector with high barriers to entry, such as significant startup costs, whose product has no substitutes. Okay, so the pure monopoly means the pure monopoly, it is a company. So the pure monopoly is a single seller or a single company in the market which is offering a high barriers or high obstacles to the entry of other businesses. And what barrier can they be? One of the barrier can be high startup cost for the businesses. It means that such companies who are actually all in all in market, they are selling the product at very higher price, and they have set up their business to a very high level, to a costly level, and there to such a level that no other competitor or no other business can basically compete with this company. Okay, so this will be known as the pure monopoly. The pure monopoly is the company is a single seller, uh, with which the other business cannot compete in terms of the startup cost. They have started their business to such a higher level, financial setup level, that other competitors, the new buys, the other businesses, they cannot compete with this company, this monopoly. Okay, the natural monopoly. A natural monopoly develops in reliance on unique raw materials, technology, or specialization. Companies that have the patents or extensive research and development costs, such as pharmaceutical company, are considered natural monopolies. Okay. Now, what are the natural monopolies, or what is the natural monopoly? Natural monopoly is the company that is basically developed a monopoly, or basically become all in all a single seller on the basis of its unique raw materials, its technology, or this other specialization in other field. Okay, it means the company is having such an advanced technology, or it is using this unique raw materials that other companies, other businesses, they are unable to get access to such technology and the raw materials. These companies have patents. Patent are basically those products whose alternatives cannot be generated in the market. They are single, they are one, and their alternatives cannot be prepared, and their alternatives cannot be offered. So whenever a company is selling a product with very advanced technology, very high level technology with unique raw materials, and the company owns the patent, it means that company is basically the natural monopoly, the natural company. Okay, and again, the development cost is much higher. For example, many pharmaceutical companies, they own patent drugs, and such patent drugs, their alternatives cannot be prepared by other companies, other pharmaceutical companies with the same name or different name. Public monopolies. Public monopolies provide essential services and goods, such as the utility industry, as only one company commonly supplies energy or water to a region. The monopoly is allowed and heavily regulated by the government, municipalities, and rate increases are controlled. Okay, so the public monopolies are basically those single sellers or those companies that are providing services and goods, that are providing essential services and goods. Essential services and goods mean, for example, they are providing energy, they are providing hygienic water. So, whenever they are providing essential services and they are the single seller, then they will known as public monopolies. And such monopolies are regulated by the government municipalities. Okay. So, these are the types of monopolies. Pros and cons of monopolies. Without competition, monopolies can set prices and keep prices consistent and reliable for the consumer. Monopolies enjoy economies of scale, often able to produce mass quantities at lower costs per unit. Standing alone as a monopoly allows a company to securely invest into innovation without the fear of competition. So basically, all of these are not pros and cons. These are basically the pros of monopoly. Uh, because there is no competition. A company is a single seller in any market of any product. So this company or this monopoly will enjoy the profit alone, will enjoy the economies of scale alone, and it can offer, depending upon the circumstances, depending upon its financial stability, that monopoly can offer the massive quantities of the goods and the services at very lower cost. Why? Because the monopoly is not facing any competition. It's the a single seller, and there is no other seller in the market who can compete with its sale and purchase. Okay, so there are many pros of monopoly, but there is a single drawback of the monopoly. There is a con of monopoly, that is market failure. Okay, market failure will occur whenever there is monopoly, because due to monopoly there will be inefficient supply of resources to all the businesses present in the market. And when a business is occupying two-third or two-fourth of a market, then of course there will be inefficient supply of resources, and it will result in market failure. So this is the major con of monopoly. Regulation of monopoly. Antitrust laws and regulations are in place to discourage the monopolistic operations, protect the consumers, and ensure an open market. So whenever there is monopoly in any market, then government will take the step. The government will implement the laws and the regulations on any market in order to discourage the monopoly. In 1890, the Sherman Antitrust Act was passed by the US Congress to limit trusts, a precursor to the monopoly, or the group of companies that colluded to fix the prices. So basically, the name of the company was changed or replaced by the word trust. Okay, so whenever a company is multiplying its profit, when a company is playing a major role and controlling the basic decisions, price fixing, and ever sale purchase of the products, almost everything regarding a product, then the government was able to introduce the law, Sherman Antitrust Law, in the US, and the name of the company was replaced by the word trust, or you can say the word trust was added to the name of the company or the group of the companies. Why? Because they are multiplying the profit, they are gaining huge profit, so now they will be able to work as a trust as well. Okay, so there was the shift of resources. Basically, through the implementation of this act, there was the shift of resources from the monopolies to the other businesses. This act dismantled the monopolies, including Standard Oil Company and the American Tobacco Company. So these are the very important and very famous companies: Standard Oil Company (SOC) and ATC, American Tobacco Company. So both of these companies, they were actually acting as monopoly between before 1890. And after the implementation of the law, these companies will be converted to the trusts, and their resources were shifted to the other businesses. Okay, so there is another act, the Clayton Antitrust Act of 1940. After 1890, 1914, another antitrust act was implemented, created the rules of mergers, corporate directors, and listed practices that would violate the Sherman Antitrust Act, and the Federal Trade Commission Act created the Federal Trade Commission, which, along with the Antitrust Division of the US Department of Justice, set standard for the business practices and enforces the two Antitrust Act. So in 1914, the Clayton Antitrust Act was created and implemented. So why was there a need to create another Antitrust Act? Because some of the corporate companies, they violate the rules as stated by the Sherman Antitrust Act. So for these companies, for this some specific corporate companies, this act was created, and it was made sure that it will be implemented strictly, along with the Federal Trade Commission Act that was created by Federal Trade Commission. The most consequential monopoly breakup in US history was that of AT&T. After controlling the nation's telephone service for decades as a government-supported monopoly, AT&T fell to antitrust laws. Okay, so this is a big example in the history of US. AT&T was the government-aided, government-supported monopoly that was basically controlling the telephone service along the US, along the major part of the US. In 1982, AT&T, which had telephone lines that reached nearly every home and business in the US, was forced to divest itself of 22 local exchange service companies, the main barrier to competition. So in 1982, when the Sherman Antitrust Act was created and implemented, this government supported AT&T company or monopoly. It was basically forced to deprive its 22 local exchanges. Okay, because the company did not agree to convert itself into a trust. So therefore, the this act due to this act, Sherman Antitrust Act, the company was forced to deprive its 22 local exchanges, because this monopoly was controlling the major telephone services to almost every state, every home of US. Okay, now the fourth one is improvement of market performance. Governments can create subsidies, taxing the public and giving the money to an industry, or tariffs, adding taxes to foreign products to lift prices and make domestic products more appealing. Okay, so whenever inflation increases, government increases the tax on foreign products. Why? Because maybe in this way, the citizens will start using the local products instead of the foreign products or the imported products. Higher taxes, fees, and greater regulations can stymie the businesses or the entire industries. Economists, however, identify six major functions of the government in market economies. Government provide the legal and social framework, maintain the competition, provide the public goods and services, redistribute the income, correct for externalities, and stabilize the economies. Okay, so how the performance of the market will be regulated? By introducing the taxes, by adding the taxes to the imported products, foreign products, by adding the tariffs. Okay, so in this way, when the tariffs or taxes have been introduced on the will be introduced on the foreign products, the citizen will start using the local products. And by usage of the local products, basically or directly, the economy of the country will improve. Why? Because the citizens are using the products of their own country. They are basically adding into the economy of their own country. Okay, so in this way, the government is providing the legal and the social framework and maintain the competition. Okay, how? By providing the public goods and services. One role of the government is to correct problems of the market failure associated with the public goods, external costs, and benefits. One role of the government is to correct the problems of market failure associated with the public goods, external costs and benefits, and imperfect competition. Okay, so how the government is correcting the problem of market failure? We have discussed the causes of market failure, and we have also discussed that how the causes or the basic root cause or the problems they can be removed from the market, or how the market failure can be corrected. Government interventions to correct market failure always has the potential to move the markets closer to efficient solutions and thus reduce the dead weight losses. Okay, whenever the market failure is corrected by the government, so the government is indirectly regulating the market or making the market more successful as before. The government can improve market outcomes usually when one group has too much market power or the cost of benefits to the third party that are not being considered. So here we are talking about monopoly. When the monopoly is discouraged, the government is directly playing its role in improving the market performance. Then mobility and social inclusion. Social mobility is the movement in time of individuals, families, or other social units between the positions of varying advantage in the system of social stratification of a society. Classical authors have studied social mobility primarily in its contribution to a class or Status group formation. Okay, why mobility and social inclusion is very important for the regulation of any market? Because when a certain area or a community is having less number of individuals living there, less number of citizens residing over there, then of course there will be no proper purchase of the products or the services. There will be no consumer in the a very less number of consumers in the society. So it is very important that the movement of individuals, families, or the social or other social units, they will be keep on introducing in any society. Social mobility, therefore, the social mobility is directly linked to equality of opportunities. The extent to which the people have the same chances to do well in the life, regardless of the socio-economic background of their parents. Okay, so their gender, age, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, birthplace, or other circumstances beyond their control. Whenever the government takes steps in order to ensure the social mobility in any area, so the government will not, of course, it will not focus on all these things. It will not, the government will not focus on the background of the people, their gender, their age, their sexual orientation, their ethnicity, their birthplace, and the other circumstances. Because whenever the aim is to multiply or to strengthen the economy of any country, then all these things should not be taken into consideration. It will not affect the economic status of any country if the person living over a specific society belongs to different race, different religion, different background. Okay, so mobility and social inclusion is very important. Inequality and social mobility are separate but related challenges. The former reflects an uneven access to resources, that is, inequality, while the latter demonstrates the level of social justice. Social mobility means fairness and equity in a society. So, therefore, inequality should be discouraged while the social mobility should be encouraged. Example of social inclusion, ensuring access to employment and the tools to participate in social life are readily available and accessible. Ensuring easy access to basic services such as housing, employment, education, and healthcare. Encouraging community participation in social, cultural, or political events. Governments can provide opportunities for people from opposing groups to engage in shared activities in order to build trust and foster good relationships. Okay, so whenever the government will assure or ensure the social mobility or social inclusion, of course, the government will be responsible for supplying all these facilities in that area to the people: proper housing, proper employment, employer job opportunities, proper education, proper healthcare provision, and also encourage the participation of the citizens in social, cultural, or political events. Because if all these facilities will not be available in any area, in any society, how come it is possible that social inclusion or social mobility will be ensured? It is impossible then. People or the citizens, the individuals will not move to that area where they are not given with the proper facilities. So basically, it is a give and take rule. Whenever you need to multiply your economy, means your country's economy, you have to make sure that social mobility will occur. Social inclusion will occur in industrial area, but social inclusion in industrial area or in near any market, local market or a national market, will not occur if all these basic necessities or basic facilities of life are not introduced. Okay, so these were few interventions that are being done by the government, the basic steps that are being taken by the government in order to uh, correct the drawbacks in any market. Okay, so for if we talk about correction of any drawback, or if we talk about the adjustment of any drawback, the that thing that should be given priority, or that is the basic thing in correction of any drawback, is the law in enforcement legislation of any country. The law has a big part to play in ensuring everyone works together and gets a fair deal. Okay, so what is the deal? You develop a business over in a specific area, you provide specific facilities or the basic necessities to the persons, as a result of which the persons will move over there and they will become a proper or permanent consumer of your good or service. There is judicial system in places across the UK and Ireland, which means people who mistreat others based on their cultural identity are prosecuted. Okay, so whenever you are offering the mobility to almost every individual, to all individuals from the different races, different ethnicity, different family background, then of course you will also ensure that they will not mistreat each other. Okay, so for that case, for that thing, enforcement is very important. The judicial system in UK and Ireland has a responsibility to prosecute those who mistreat others based on their cultural identity. Along with their cultural identity or their ethnicity or their race, it is a vital responsibility of any government to make sure that all the people living in a specific community do not mistreat each other. There are laws against discrimination in the workplace. Everyone must be treated fairly under these laws, enjoy equal opportunities, and receive equal pay for the same work, regardless of the gender, race, or religion. So, along with the residential areas, if the individuals are working in any workplace, the same laws will be implemented over there. They will not hit each other on the basis of their ethnicity and their family background, and the workplace will be responsible to assure the equal wages to all the persons working over there, and there would be fair working environment or the work friendly environment for all the persons working in a specific workplace. Okay, so this was all about today's lecture. And I hope so at the end of today's lecture, and plus the previous lecture, lecture number 8, you people will be able to understand the impact of market environment on organizations. Okay. So let me ask you a few questions first. And after that, please do tell me if you have any question. So, better tell me how the market failure can be corrected.
Ma'am, I will tell you.
Yes, better tell me, please.
By the government can help the organizations or market to correct those failures in or like they can give them the proper information regarding the suppliers also and the sellers also. This information will be given to both of them to ensure that they know about the proper prices, proper information of the products.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Anyone else who can give the answer of how market failure can be corrected? Good, Hira. Anyone else, beta? Okay, okay. Tell me the answer of
Ma'am,
second question.
it can be
Yes,
corrected by implementing taxes and subsidies and etc.
yes, and also by discouraging the monopolies.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. What is monopoly? Hamza and Rasha.
Yes, ma'am. A monopoly is defined as a single seller or producer that excludes competition from providing the same product.
Hmm.
Um, Monopoly can um, dictate price changes and create barriers from the competition to enter the marketplace.
Yes, exactly. Basically, monopoly is the one company, the single seller that is all in any market.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
So, okay. Do you have any question, beta?
no, ma'am.
Okay.